For the first time for this Montreal Canadiens season, it's great to be here. Thank you so much for joining us. That is Marco D'Amico. I am Shaun Starr, fresh off the Montreal Canadiens' first preseason game. Yes, my friends, Habs hockey is finally back as Montreal hit the ice for their first preseason game against the visiting Pittsburgh Penguins. Marco, we've got storylines. We have some questions. Maybe we have some answers. Owen Beck, even the scoring in the game's third period. It took a while for things to get going. Montreal went on to win 2-1 in a shootout over the Penguins at the Bell Center last night. Oliver Kapanen, what a dandy move, scoring the game winner in that shootout. Now the Canadiens still have 5 preseason games left to go. 3 of them will be on Bell Center ice. Tonight, it's the Philadelphia Flyers. They've got Toronto a couple of times. They have Ottawa. And then we jump right into October the 8th from Toronto. Marco was in the building and then in the room last night off the Canadiens' performance on Bell Center ice. What was the vibe like in the building, Marco?
Fans were excited as usual. There was a couple of people that were a little late to the game because of the STM strike, but once the game got going, you really kind of felt the energy in there. And same thing in the room. It is what it is. These are players, most of them trying to prove themselves at the NHL level. So it was kind of infectious to see the reaction from guys like Jacob Fowler and Owen Beck and Philip Meshar and Jared Davidson, who, let's be honest, I think all had their impact on last night's game.
Yeah, we'll get into obviously the storylines. We'll talk about some of the questions and whether or not there were any answers, because what seems to be a bit of a theme going into the preseason schedule that obviously is going to carry into tonight with a fresh set of roster players. The Montreal Canadiens lineup is out ahead of tonight's 7:00 puck drop from Montreal against Philadelphia. The Flyers also announced their lineup, and no, we're not getting a Demidov versus Michkov preseason mano-a-mano kind of situation. But one of the themes that we've been talking about, or the question that's been asked and debated, how many jobs are up for grabs? Martin St. Louis had been talking about, and I like his perspective, like, make the decision hard for us, stand out, make us go back after a game, after a practice, and make us talk about you. So let's talk about Oliver Kapanen, who was down the middle with Laine on one side, Demidov on the other. Kapanen's face-off ability yesterday was very good. What did you make of the rest of his performance and how he looked, in your opinion?
I thought defensively he played well, right? I thought, he was able to follow Ivan Demidov, and I felt like ultimately he was able to kind of bring that strong two-way game, but we just didn't see the offensive push that you would want from somebody in that role. And I think that's kind of what left me kind of, I guess, a little bit, I wouldn't say disappointed, but I felt like he could have offered more considering the opportunity that was put in front of him, to be able to play with Laine, who, he also did not have a very good game in and of his own, but he's just trying not to get injured at this point.
Yeah.
And then obviously Demidov, trying things and wowing the crowd with his hands, I felt like a lot of players were like shaking off the rust, whereas a guy like Kapanen has already been playing for a week now and, had a rookie cap, has this camp going on right now. You would expect a little bit more. And that's why I was thoroughly impressed with what I saw from Owen Beck, because Beck wasn't given the golden opportunity, but he made the golden opportunity out of what it is that was put in front of him.
Yeah, I liked Owen Beck's, to your point, I liked Owen Beck's game. In terms of like who's going to stand out, because I get to the main point of like when you go through the lines 1 through 4, the number 1 line remains intact. There's no debate there, in my opinion, going into October the 8th, because that's what it's about, right? It's about setting up your 12 best forwards, the guys that can play a role to Martin St. Louis' vision. So with that in mind, like Suzuki, Caulfield, and Slav rock and roll. I'm going to assume if Kirby Dach, in the best case scenario, he has a good preseason with however many games he gets into, he'll be given the first opportunity with Demidov and Laine on line number 2. I think Zach Bolduc is locked in with Alex Newhook. The veteran line of Evans, Gallagher, and Anderson remains intact. So that takes us to our point finale of who's going to be molded in to play on the Newhook/Bolduc line. And I have to think, and again, riffing off one game, and I'm not here to make a mountain out of a molehill here, but one game, I think it might be Owen Beck's job to lose. And what does that mean for Oliver Kapanen? Then, if what I'm saying turns into the reality, what do you think that means for Kapanen? He goes down to Laval and plays what type of role?
Well, he would probably be first line center if he.
Yeah, okay.
Like, to me, between Beck and Kapanen, whoever doesn't make the team is in Laval playing top 6 minutes, right?
Yeah.
So that to me it makes the most amount of sense. But again, it's one preseason game, right? Like we saw Kapanen have a fire first preseason game last year and kind of tail off towards the end of preseason, and kind of make the team. I wouldn't say by default, because he did earn it because no one else really stood out.
Yeah.
But if he wasn't a center, I don't know that he would have made it last year, right? So positional importance is key. So when you're looking at a guy like Owen Beck last night, yes, he definitely showed more with a whole lot less firepower around him. But he and Philip Meshar had really strong chemistry that goes back to their time in Laval last year. I thought Meshar played probably the best game he's ever played with a Canadian sweater or affiliate sweater on. And I just thought that, he used his vision, his body, his speed, his stick handling. It was a little awkward a little bit in the first period. But then after that, you just felt like he and Beck started going, and they kind of really took over that third period in terms of possession. So those two did really well. For Kapanen, though, he's got to be more assertive from the offensive perspective. And to me, it's unfortunate because the fit is, I feel, wrong to put him there. He's a guy that could play in your top 9 and probably should play with a guy like Newhook, who's more of a speedster that can take care of the zone entries and whatnot. But he's a goal scorer first, playmaker second. And on that kind of line with a Demidov and a Laine, you want someone with a little bit more speed, a little bit more jam, and someone who is able to distribute the puck a little bit more. So I feel like it might be a stylistic clash, but you still want to see the habits. You still want to see how he reacts to the game. And I felt like from the defensive side of things, he reacted well for the most part.
I like this comment. The chat's starting to populate now as we react to the Canadiens come from behind to 2-1 shootout win over the Pittsburgh Penguins in what was like, let's be honest, the first 40 minutes there left a lot to be desired. Things finally got going. I don't know for you, but, maybe this had an impact. That's Poulin's face after it met Jared Davidson's fist a few times. Davidson, I had to look this guy up in the sense of, like, what's his fight card look like? And he got into like 4 or 5 scraps last season. I got to tell you, man, this guy punching uphill. I mean, there's Poulin's face. Davidson's face didn't look like this after the game. I mean, this guy more or less held his own. And I mean, can I get a reaction? That was a hell of a preseason fight. Like, fists were loose and man, fists were landing. And also, like, if I could be critical, I thought the referees were in mid-season form, man. They missed a lot of calls. And what they Davidson just kept trying to rip Poulin's helmet off, and then eventually he finally did, and they still let them go. But maybe this is what you and I talked about a lot this summer, no? Like Jeff Gordon, the team, Martin St. Louis, like they want guys that bring the edge and the grit. I mean, Jared Davidson did that and more. Your reaction to that perhaps turning point of the hockey game last night?
Yeah, so Martin St. Louis addressed this directly to us. He said, I want a pack of wolves. Like, right. I want us to move as a pack, to work as a pack, to be as a pack. And I think you saw a lot of that. So to me, I think it helped kind of energize the team, yes. But at the same time, this was at a time where the Canadiens were just getting routed in terms of possession and chances for. By that point, they had been doubled in shots. And from that moment on, they doubled the Penguins in shots and momentum at that point. So it was good. And I believe, I like the shift in momentum. I like that it didn't have to come from the top line. I think that's the key. And when you look at preseason, right, this is where you don't want to fall into a trap of making like very impulsive kind of, viewpoints on certain players. The veterans are just trying to get back into shape, other than Josh Anderson, who is just always in playoff mode. All the veterans are just trying to get into shape. And a lot of these young guys are trying to prove where they belong in the hierarchy of the Canadiens organization and other organizations, which explains why you had the Penguins, right, with like Harrison Brunicky, you have Owen Pickering. That defensive pairing was fantastic for the Penguins. Why? Because they're A, very good, and B, have a lot to prove because the Penguins decor, as we know, is very old and very thin. So these are two guys that are trying to prove that they belong in the show. So these are guys playing above their level with adrenaline, like going through, coming out of their ears, where you have a Patrick Laine, for example, who's just playing not to get injured and just trying to shake the rust and, not start the season on IR. You know what I'm saying? So that's the way I look at these kind of situations. One area that we absolutely need to touch on from the Pittsburgh side and the Canadian side was we were privy to a goaltending clinic last night.
Oh, without question. Best players on the ice last night. Best players on the ice.
Incredible.
Yeah, I mean, the puck movement, full credit to the Penguins. Their puck movement was fantastic on their opening goal, right? Roof Daddy on Sam Montembeault, but Montembeault settled right in. No issues with the groin that pulled him from last season when he got hurt, right? Mm-hmm. And then obviously, what dawned on me when Jacob Fowler comes in, with like 9 minutes left in the second period or whatever the number was. You know what? We can talk about Demidov and Hudson and Dobson, and we're going to talk more about those guys here, right? Because again, if you're just jumping in, we're breaking down the Canadiens' first preseason game against Pittsburgh. Make sure to hit that like button if you're stoked that Habs hockey is back. And one of the takeaways was all of these star players. Man, Montreal's still a goalie market. Jacob Fowler is making good saves, good composure, and then obviously, I mean, the game-stopping save in the shootout brought fans almost to their feet, and the building was quite loud. But to your point, I mean, that was a nice little goalie battle. I mean, was it? We talked about this, Connor McKenna and I this morning. Was it a little bit in terms of his composure? Talking about Jacob Fowler now, a little reminiscent in terms of 31 and just how, again, now don't laugh, just his coolness and what he said to you guys in the room afterwards, right? Like he finds peace on the ice.
I don't laugh at you.
No, I understand. Yeah.
It happened in the room. Someone asked him point blank, like, you're very Carey Price-esque. And he just like, what do you say to that? He's like, I'm not trying to be anybody other than me,
Yeah.
I'm just like this poor kid. Oh, but I think first of all, that 2-on-1 save in overtime, literally the Bell Center went unglued. Like everyone jumped out of their seats. Everyone was standing from that moment on.
Even I was like, whoa.
I thought it was over at that point as well. But I mean, Jacob Fowler's explosivity, like I remember Jacob Fowler last year when I saw him in Laval, and I was standing right next to him in the dressing room last night, and that guy slimmed down. Like there was a lot of questions around his draft year about his conditioning, and his conditioning looks really, really good now. Like
interesting.
Obviously it's half a game, or we can call it 2/3 because he played overtime and shootouts. But
yeah,
I think when you look at his body of work now, he's more mobile. The way he moves laterally is just excellent. He was already really good from an angles perspective. And so like when you talk to him about how he trained for this and how he's readying for this, his idea was, I know that there's probably very little chance of me making this club just because of the hierarchy ahead of me, but I'm going to make the absolute best of my time in Laval. And I need to be ready to play upwards of 40 games.
Yeah.
And, that's not easy. Jakub Dobich, I believe, played like something just north of 50 in his rookie year. So that's a lot of games for a rookie goaltender. And he looked like he was ready. And, one of the best things he said was, I believe it was a colleague, Stu Cowan, that asked him, it's like, what do you do when you play around in front of like 20,000 fans in a Bell Center? How do you keep calm? And he's like, I always stay calm. Right. I always stay calm. And, it doesn't matter if it's 20,000, 15,000, 12,000, 5,000, nobody on the ice, nobody in the stands. It's always the same thing. You go out and try to help your team to win. But I will say one thing to fans: cool your jets with Jacob Fowler. We all remember what happened with Carey Price. We all remember this. Okay. Carey Price started at 20, looked good the first year, and then almost ruined him until they eventually traded, they continued to show confidence, and they traded Yao Halak and they gave him the net, and they had to live or die with him. And he peaked at that point. You don't want to make the same mistake that, Buffalo made, with their goaltending right now, trying to throw certain players in right out of college Canadians did it with Caden Primo. Let this kid simmer. Goaltenders
Agreed.
take a while, very unpredictable. Montembeault can clearly hold the fort for now. So I don't think there's any rush to make any move. No ifs, ands, or buts.
How much of this preseason are we thinking is going to be experimental in regards to the Canadiens' second line, which obviously was the biggest hole on the team up front, without question? Still uncertain of when Kirby Dach's going to play. As we see here, TSN 690's John Still, amongst many colleagues, covering the morning skate ahead of tonight's 7:00 game, right? So there you see there, the number one line is going to be there. I love this. I'm a big buyer. I kind of want Zach Bolduc. I was, talking with Marco most of the summer. I'd love to see him win that job on the second line. I think he brings the jam. You saw him at the tail end of the season with St. Louis and how great he was in terms of generating offense and finishing offense. But again, is this, you read anything, the Bolduc, Newhook, as again, they're trying to fill, that role? I mean, do you have him penciled in more or less to start the season on line number 3, I guess, if we can call it that, with Dach, Demidov, and line A occupying line number 2? Is that how you see it?
That's how I see it for now. I think that's how Martin St. Louis wants to see it. I will say this, though. If Patrick Laine plays the rest of the preseason like he did last night, you might end up with Bolduc on the second line. I'm not saying this to
I didn't dislike his game, though, brother.
I felt like his game went away. Like, he was really good at puck protection. Like, I'll give him that.
Exactly.
But,
agreed.
He lost pucks for no reason.
Yeah. And what's with the one-on-one stuff? Well,
the one-on-one stuff is actually not that bad. He scored 2-3 penalties off his one-on-one play.
Fair.
That I actually appreciated. It's more like the edge work, right? Like, he would do a turn and like the puck would go left and he would go right. There was just some lack of concentration I found. And so again, these are things that you work back into from rust. And, obviously practice. This is why I tell, fans, like, practicing in the summer and doing fancy things on the ice when there's no one coming at you looks nice, but it's in-game timing that's important. And that's why you need to play a lot of these preseason games to get back into it. And I feel like Laine, needs to get back into it. And obviously is to get to a point later in the preseason where he's going to give more of an effort, because that's when you really have to evaluate, okay, where does he fit on that second line, or would Bolduc be a better fit? Stylistically, my 2 cents, I think Bolduc would be a better fit on that second line. Not at center, but at wing. However, this is very important, Bolduc is a lefty, Dach is a righty. Dach takes the right face-off, Bolduc takes the left face-offs, and then you wash your hands. That would be ideal, because you then maximize the amount of time that you could potentially start with possession, which was a problem for the Canadiens last year. And then you have Demidov on the other side. Like, it's a very easy play. Do you want me to talk about Davidson here?
Yeah, absolutely. Just want to put Poulin's face back up after Davidson's fist met his face a bunch of times yesterday. I love the fight. I thought the fight was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, fight-wise, yes. But what I want to say is, like, I agree. He looked hungry. He looked like he wanted to make a difference. He was a nice complementary piece to the Owen Beck, Philip Meshar duo.
Line,
those guys go like that line. That was a line to start the season in Laval before Meshar got injured, and they were really, really productive. So I could see why, because he brings muscle to that line. He brings them space. He brings them time, and they're able to do their thing. So kind of like an undercover hero of that line, and really unsung in that regard. All I got to say is he's got to stay healthy. Yeah, that's his biggest thing. He's got to stay healthy, and he's got to continue to prove that he can be more than just a goal scorer. I mean, being a goal scorer is a good thing, but it's the details in the game, being able to play on that PK, being able to play a safer 5-on-5 game, and staying away from the penalty box, other than, obviously, you could show the picture of Poulin again, doing that.
I'm not gonna get tired of it, Marco. Anyways, Canadiens pick up the 2-1 shootout win, and they're back at it. The Philadelphia Flyers published their lineup. Contrast that with the Montreal Canadiens. Let's put the Habs lineup back up on the board. Like, what are you looking for today? Obviously, we look at the Fleury and Jack-Eye. I mean, that's with Thorpe. I mean, there's a lot of beef. Where's the beef? It's right here with Jack-Eye and Thorpe. Yeah. But Interesting to see your boy. I remember, I'll give you full credit. You were the guy that told us about Vincent Rohrer at the World Hockey Championships. It was a big game for him. No, I don't think I'm being dramatic, but it's a big game for Vincent Rohrer based off how Meshar looked, how Beck looked, how Kapanen looked. What about this game for Rohrer tonight?
Yeah, I think colleague John still got the lines mixed up. Rohrer, Veleno, and Blais are the third line. Tuck, Jackeye, and Thorpe are the fourth. Rohrer playing with Veleno is not by chance, right? You want to give him an NHL center. And for all the flack that Veleno gets, I think he's an NHL center. He's a depth NHL piece. And having Rohrer there with Blais, that's going to be a very gritty, motored line. And one of the things that has come up a lot, in my conversations with people that have been at camp with me has been Rohrer is 5'11", about 180 pounds. The man plays like he's 6'3", 220. Like it's very hard to get him off his skates. He's super chippy in the boards, very almost like a buzzsaw in the neutral zone. He's shown the ability to be very valuable on special teams, especially on the penalty kill. And this is a guy that's not afraid to go to the high danger areas. So to me, I think this is, I don't think that he will necessarily make the team unless he absolutely takes his game up like a notch. But I think he's going to leave his calling card where people are going to remember him. So then when the season ends with Zurich and he's playing with the Laval Rocket for another long playoff run, he's going to be one of those marquee guys that you're going to be like, whoa, okay, he's going to be a guy to watch next year at camp. Because he, to me, reminds me of the perfect mix between Brendan Gallagher and Paul Byron. And if you were to put them together, because he's basically Gallagher with wheels. And that's a dangerous proposition, because if Gallagher weren't held back from his foot speed with his size, I think he would have scored even more in his career. He would have been more of a shoe-in top six player for a longer portion of his career. And I feel like now as he kind of unfortunately reaches the tail end of his career, that foot speed kind of relegates him to fourth line duty, right? So if you have a guy like Rohrer, that kind of ability, you have an asset that can last you longer in a bottom six role where he's more suited. I think that's an interesting piece. So to put him with Blais and Veleno is going to be interesting, because I have a funny feeling he might be able to carry that line.
Interesting. We've spoken almost exclusively about what we saw in terms of battles in preseason game number 1. But what about on the defensive side? Jaden Struble made his preseason debut last night. And, if we look at the Canadiens' 6 defensemen that we're expected to see, obviously Alex Carrier locked into his role. Matheson and Dobson were paired together. They drove together to the Monday golf tournament. That was maybe perhaps a little bit of an indication. And then here they are. And Martin St. Louis believes in speed. Speed can be a great defensive asset. I don't agree with it today. We shall see how it plays out. I defer to the experts, right? But let's talk.
My head, though.
Yeah, go ahead.
My head. I really do not like that Dobson-Matheson pairing.
I agree with. It's unfortunate we agree, because it could be a really good topic. Yeah. And I've been preaching this, brother. Like I need that little contrasting style. Maybe I'm old school in my thinking in terms of I need good defensemen. And I got laughed out of the room on TSN 690 when I'm like, I gave a hot take. I'm like, I need the Joel Edmondsons a little bit, the kind of guy that can hit hard and play, decent defense. But I get his angle. So that's my point of view. What's your perspective on what, I guess, turns you off when it comes to Matheson and Dobson?
I liked Dobson last night. First of all, Dobson had the most amount of shots of any Canadian last night. It was 5.
At 5, eh?
7 shot attempts.
Right.
That's one of the main reasons, by the way, the Canadians went out and got Dobson. My only thing is Dobson's best career years were spent playing next to robust, physical defensemen, specifically Alexander Romanov. And to me, if you're going to be, with mobile, stay-at-home-ish kind of defenseman, there's only one on this team, and his name is Caden Gooley.
All day.
And I feel like, you could say Alex Carrier to a degree, but I meant on the left side. I think you don't want 2 defensemen playing on their offside in your top 6. I don't think that's a good idea. But you look at Dobson, really good breakouts, really good passing, was put unfortunate situations, almost because of positioning, lack of chemistry, which is something that Martin St. Louis alluded to when I asked him about it yesterday, but was the most used player on the ice, more so than Matheson, give you that. But the one thing I will say is I just feel like Matheson is also an offensive defenseman trying to be molded into a more defensive style player. I feel like, and we have the history of this already, I just feel like he would be better suited playing on his offside with Lane Hudson and Gooley be playing with Noah Dobson. Because if your plan is to play Dobson against the best of the opposition, I don't know that Canadiens fans are really ready to agree with that notion. And I feel like when the Canadiens lost Caden Gooley last year, it showed big time in their defensive matchups. So, like, we know that Gooley is going to take a lot of David Savard's PK minutes, why not just put them together to begin with and go with what works when it comes to Lane and Matheson? However, this is my opinion. Hockey is played on the ice. We still have time for evaluation. But my first indication was I felt like that pairing did not help Noah Dobson to start.
As the team rounds out its defensive depth, I think my read, through camp and through one preseason game, Habs and Flyers tonight at 7:00. And, here's a look at who Philadelphia's going to put out there on the ice tonight. Obviously, you're going to recognize some names there. Former Hab great Christian Dvorak, scheduled to slot in Nicolas Deslauriers, Sean Couturier, Owen Tippett. They're bringing some talent. The Montreal Canadiens are going to counter here, and it brings me to this point of Arbor Xhekaj, who seems to be now a little bit of a darling of Coach Martin St. Louis. Dare I say, a little bit of a 180 from last year, but credit to Xhekaj. He's slimmed down. He looks more dynamic at camp. Obviously, taking a very professional approach to his offseason. If you ask me right now, dare I say that he has one foot in the door ahead of Jayden Struble? And I think largely because of what Xhekaj does that nobody on his team can match. If I'm talking about on one side of my mouth how I like some of the grit. We saw Jared Davidson yesterday. Arbor Xhekaj brings a very certain and specific skill set. No disrespect to Jayden Struble, but I mean, have the Canadiens reached the territory? They have too many prospects, too much talent at this point. There's a lot of tough decisions to be made here.
Yeah, I mean, look at last night. They were playing Adam Engstrom on the right, even though he's a lefty, right? Like, they're trying stuff.
Fair.
I like that you say that he has a particular set of skills. It really got the whole Liam Neeson stuck in my head, which I feel like works with Xhekaj because he's kind of a killer, I guess.
Yeah.
But I feel like with Xhekaj, like I was watching Struble last night because I'm looking for differentiators, right?
Sure.
In a camp like this, bottom role, how are you going to be a differentiator? We talked about this on previous episodes. Special teams, if you're a bottom pair defenseman, is excessively important, either on the power play or on the penalty kill. Jayden Struble was used on the penalty kill. I didn't dislike his game, but nothing stood out, right? And the physicality along the boards, I felt was inconsistent. A lot of guys would bounce off of him and continue their play as if nothing happened, where I feel like he doesn't check them into the boards. Whereas a Xhekaj will not only take you into the boards, it'll take your soul into the boards, right? Like it's kind of a different aggressiveness. And I'm looking forward to seeing it tonight against a team like the Philadelphia Flyers, who have some tough customers that are going to be playing, in this game. It's going to be interesting to see how he matches up against like grittier guys like Luchenko or no, I wouldn't say Tippett, but Deslauriers, those even, one of the guys that I'm really looking forward to seeing is Alex Bump. This is a guy that's very hyped in Philadelphia and had a really, really good year last year, I believe, in the NCAA. And so, this is going to be interesting. And then you look at that defense, Sealer, Sanheim, Grands, McDonald, Dennis Gilbert as well. This is not going to be an easy team to play against from a physical standpoint. So, to me, it's going to be fun to watch how they go about playing. I think based on intra-squad games, Xhekaj has the upper hand. I felt like Struble could have given himself a little bit of leeway with a stronger performance last night. Unfortunately, wasn't necessarily there. Now we're going to see what happens with Xhekaj, but it's no it's no coincidence that Xhekaj is being paired with Carrier, right? That to me is really telling, because that would necessarily be your third pair.
Yes, that to me, it's the same logic I apply. Who's gonna play on the Newhook line? Who's gonna play next to Carrier? That's the job.
I like that you bring up the Newhook line, because I did want to talk about that one for a second. Joshua Roy, to me, based on the way that he played in intra-squad camps, probably has a leg up on being the guy that's going to complete that line.
Ooh.
And they would hold on to one of the two centers, be it Kapanen or Beck, if they continue to play as well as they have, one or the other, as like a 13th forward, assuming Veleno keeps up or not, because it is really telling that Veleno is being used in kind of like a fifth line setting right now, whereas you have like Beck and Kapanen and Joshua Roy being used with NHLers throughout this camp. So I feel like, you look at Joshua Roy, slimmed down a lot, much stronger, much more explosive. And that was the biggest critique with him. His body was not at an NHL level. Yep. His mind was, but his body was not. If now the body follows, well, this to me is a top 9 NHL player. And I think, that intelligence, that hockey IQ is, I think Nick Suzuki put it best. He's like, once my body caught up to my mind, everything seemed to click. And he said that about 3 years ago. So I feel like it's kind of the same thing here, where if you put Roy in this situation, Roy with Bolduc, first of all, 2 of the highest scoring QMJHL players in the last 5 or 6 years, you put them together. I really like the idea of Newhook being a puck carrier on that line, opening up some space with speed, and then having these guys with good vision and good shots kind of come in and being able to finish that play. So I don't dislike that line. And because of Bolduc's grittiness, I'm not afraid of the size of that line. You need to see a little bit more oomph from Roy, so it's going to be interesting to see that against Philly.
While we talk about line combinations up front on the Canadiens' back end, there's one particular sequence or two that stood out to me. Let's talk about that right here. The Canadiens had 2 5-on-3 man advantages. And listen, in the last 3 or 4 years, I believe they went from 29th up to 21st. So they're growing incrementally. I'm thinking this team, if they're going to get back to the playoffs, I'm thinking they need to be right there. They need to be 15th, 16th in the National Hockey League. It's one preseason game. We're not the type of show that's going to overreact, bury guys, put guys over because of how they played in a preseason game. To me, it was more or less mission accomplished. The Canadiens played a game that went to overtime, that went into a shootout, and nobody got hurt. But the power play, I know they don't have a lot of time to work on it. Before they played on the Monday, the last thing they did was work on special teams. When you watch that power play operate yesterday, did that come across as, oh man, it's going to take a minute before these guys are able to find each other and pick up on each other's tendencies? Your reads on the power play last night from the Canadiens?
I don't like it. I don't like those combinations. I understand Martin St. Louis trying to keep his 5-on-5 lines together.
Yeah.
But there is no easier setup in my mind than having Ivan Demidov on the first power play wave, creating a diamond formation like they used in Tampa Bay all those years, having Hudson at the top, Demidov on the right circle, Caulfield on the left circle, Suzuki in the bumper, and Slav in front of the net. I mean, it's so easy that they've already used this, and it worked in the playoffs. So that's what I would want. And then you'd have Laine, Dobson, Bolduc, and then whoever you want to finish that with Doc and, Gallagher. I mean, listen, Gallagher missed that cross ice pass from Demidov on the power play that would have been, a normal tap in for a guy like Caulfield or Laine. I appreciate the player. I just don't know if he were there, if he needed to be there, if that were, I say Newhook, but Newhook missed a large potential of his opportunities. I just look at that second wave and I think to myself, how are they going to win faceoffs? Right. How are they going to start with possession if Kirby Dach is the only true centerman on that line? Right. And even that's debatable, right? So you really have to be careful. Yeah, practice is one thing, but you can practice all you want. If you don't have the combination, they have all season to practice power plays and they get no better. Sometimes it's the combination of those players. So if Kirby Dach is the only guy to win you faceoffs, I don't know how that's going to work. Like Nick Suzuki is fine. He wins what 53% of his faceoffs now. I think it's safe to leave him alone as the only center on that top unit for real.
Yeah.
I think having Budzik and Dak together on the second wave gives you that insurance because you can choose which side you start on. I just feel like, maybe if you really want your two waves to be dangerous, you got to be able to open that up. And then the other thing is I don't like the Demidov Dobson combo. And my simple answer, the simple reasoning is Demidov plays the circle. He should play a little higher on the circle, but he plays low on the circle, hoping to do that quick slot pass for the shot. Nick Suzuki would be perfect for that because he's a rover. He's a guy that moves around and opens up the ice. You want Dobson to be the shot on that power play, and yet Laine is on the other side doing nothing, right? So to do that, you got to play closer. You have to have a guy that is not going to be seen simply as a playmaker, but also a guy that can shoot. So you open up the passing lane. Dobson can move along, and then Laine can move along horizontally instead of laterally. And then you have yourself, vertically instead of horizontally, and then you have yourself an open space for two shooting options. I don't think that's going to work with Demidov there, and I think that's where the problem is. A guy that could actually work really well there is probably Kirby Dach. Why? Because Kirby Dach is not seen as a shooting threat, but he opens up ice with his reach. So that's the thinking I have in combinations. But again, and as I say this, it is preseason. I'm not an NHL coach, so I don't know. But this is what I see, my observations.
The rust was evident. I mean, Dobson looking for Laine, sometimes.
No, he didn't play.
It was in the middle of his body. It wasn't. I mean, I'm confident that the skill set is obviously there. It's going to get there. And but you saw the rust. You saw the fact that they're still kind of figuring each other out, especially when they're 5-on-3. I mean, there's so much open space, but sometimes you just need that confident guy. And I'm watching Noah Dobson play when he decides to take the puck and carry. His skating is top of the charts, and his separation speed happens quickly. So I get where Martin St. Louis is coming from when he talks about defense and speed in that position can be a big time asset. Now, watching Demidov play yesterday, I see a couple of comments. He was a little squirrely, a couple of people's observations and opinions on how 93 looked in his preseason debut. And maybe you'll accuse me of being like a fanboy take here, but I'll tell you something, man. It was a preseason game. I saw him play, in the playoffs, 7 games last year, 2 in the regular season, 5 in the playoffs. But I can see it. I can see how this guy can be a line driving winger. I mean, he's got confidence. His 180 turns, he turns on a dime to get around guys, ricocheting pucks off the back of the net to free himself from defensive coverage. Like, I get when Jeff Gordon told us at Laval-sur-le-Lac on a Monday that he believes and he sees a line driving winger. Like, yeah. I kind of see it. What about the fact that, what do you see in terms of what skill set do you think best suits 93 in a perfect world? Like, I see a few comments in the chat. They need Bolduc there. I mean, for the toughness angle, the protection angle. Demidov got rocked behind the net in that game at home against Pittsburgh yesterday, fell down. He was okay, obviously finished the game, but like, is it pure skill, or do you buy into that he needs a little protection when his line's out there?
I think you also have to protect your future franchise player is the way that they view him, right? Yeah. He did look a little frustrated last night after that hit, and I don't blame him. It was a pretty weird hit. Obviously get used to it. They're going to maul you forever. That's what a target is, right? They come for you. The one thing I will say when it comes to Demidov is he didn't shy away from it. So I don't necessarily know that he needs protection. But what I will say is he definitely needs players that could follow his speed and his game. I liked what I saw from Kapanen in terms of being able to read the plays. But ironically, finishing was the issue for the Finn. And I felt like, you have to be more on the inside for that, right? There were a lot of plays that Demidov did that you just didn't follow to that point. And Patrick Laine, I mean, I thought individually when he had the puck himself, it was more or less good. But his readings of the play were just not there for me. And I don't think that he was following that line of sight. This is a guy that if Demidov has the puck, get open, right? Get out of coverage, get open, he'll find you. And you just got to spank it in. To me, he didn't really do much of that. And these are two guys that were skating with each other all summer. So, what's the excuse? All right, you should know each other's tendencies by now, right? So I get there was a lot of rust involved. I get this, I get that. But this is the time for experimentation. It's the time to see where things go. I get it's a contract year for Laine, so they don't want to upset him too much, and they want to keep him with talented players. But on the flip side, the development of Ivan Demidov is perhaps the one focal priority of this team this season. And you cannot, in my honest opinion, jeopardize that in any way, shape, or form. So both of the players on that line, be it Doc, be it Kapanen at center, and the Laine, will have to elevate, because it was clear from the get-go that from an effort level, Demidov was on an island by himself.
Hockey's back when people are overreacting to what has just been a very thorough conversation. I don't know, Peter, if you just joined us, but as we mentioned several times in the 41 minutes on this live stream today, the rust was there. No one's killing anybody. No one's putting anyone over the top because of what they did yesterday. We're asking questions about a team that made the playoffs last year and looking for ways that this team could be better on the power play. There's a lot of skill, and there's only one puck on the ice. And mentioned several times, Dobson and Laine need to establish stuff, and it's going to be a work in process. As we talked about already, the fact that they haven't had a bunch of time to work on the power play, it's integral in the preseason that they work out some of these areas in order to get this team over the line again. Like we talk about it, based on the fact that they made the playoffs last year, there might be another team like the Montreal Canadiens that you're like, whoa, look at where these guys come from. Is it going to be Detroit? Are the Rangers going to bounce back? Even though Panarin's now day to day, he's got an injury. Who is there going to be another surprise team in the Eastern Conference that surprised like the Montreal Canadiens did? So that's just kind of where we're at this point. And I guess I'll apologize if you feel the impression that we're a little too hardcore, but I don't see it that way. Habs and Flyers tonight, brother. You're going to be back in the building tonight?
Yep.
So let's put up the Canadiens lines for a second here. The number one line are going to be interesting to see. Juraj Slafkovsky, right? He's elite at puck retrieval in the corners, net front, tips of the elite category. To me, if we're talking about the Canadiens getting incrementally better on the power play, to me, Juraj Slafkovsky is going to be a key figure in that. Even though we know Demidov and Suzuki and Caulfield and Dobson and Hudson and Laine, they got lots of talent. How important in your mind is Slafkovsky going to be
in this game or for the season?
No, for the season. I'm not going crazy about tonight.
He's got to elevate, man. You have to take it up a notch. And we make jokes about the contract kicking in and expectations being higher now, but the reality is those expectations were put in place the moment he was picked first overall. Right. And I think the vision that the Canadiens had was a near point per game power-esque forward with skill, right? And I think they expect him to get him there, considering they're playing him with a near 90-point center. And I think that's kind of where I'm at with this, right? He needs to have a season where he shows that he can not only follow, but he can take over if one of the other two on the top line are having an off game. And again, we've seen it before, right? We saw angry Slaf during the playoffs, and angry Slaf is the best Slaf.
Good one.
So
good one.
This is my thing. So when he lets out his emotion, when he plays to his strengths, I feel like that's where you really see that player that hovers around the point per game status. Now, the question is he needs to do that not over 41 games, but 82. And that's just the level of consistency that kids need to find, right? And I think there was the same thing with Caulfield. Needed to find that consistency that first season. Obviously, a lot of people are going to throw Dominic Ducharme under the bus for that, but they're part of it, and he admitted to us, part of it was from him as well. So you have to find that level of consistency. And the thing with Slafkovsky is he has no choice now, because there are two other alternatives behind him in Ivan Demidov and Zachary Bolduc that realistically could probably take that spot and run with it. So you got to be careful now with that depth, and he's got to keep up. And you know what? During the season, they may split up that line. Things may happen. Injuries may happen, so you don't know. But he's got to be ready to be able to take that game up, because he knows it. Everyone in the organization knows it. And I could tell you that Kent Hughes and Jeff Gorton told him in his exit meetings, they absolutely need him to hit the ground running right away.
The goalie matchup tonight, Kakkonen and Jakub Dobeš, they'll split it, as we saw Montembeault and Fowler. I don't want to read anything into Fowler getting it ahead of Jakub Dobeš. Dobeš going to get
a comment?
Yeah, always, please.
Peter Puck seems to have opinions. Peter Puck, I don't know if you watched the St. Louis Blues last season, but yeah, I don't think they were in trouble when they put Zachary Bolduc with Rob Thomas.
No,
I don't think they were in trouble when they put him on the top line and he was on the top power play unit, and he was a point per game player in the last 25 games of the season. I get the emotion, I get the commenting and whatnot, but let's stay in the facts. Yeah.
Commenters decided to block. They've hockey's back when the fiery opinions in the chat are going off. Thanks for being with us. As always, please, I encourage you to smash that like button, as the road to 20,000 subscribers is on in a big way, with D'Amico and Starr with you. As it's great to be a part of the journey, and I know you guys have been with us more or less from the jump as we continue our climb uphill. How deep, how legitimate is the battle in goal for you? Like, obviously, past Sam Montembeault, is there a real dogfight for the right to back up Monty starting October the 8th? Like, I don't think there is in my mind, not compared to the forward and the defensive battles.
I wouldn't call it a dogfight so much as Dobeš has a head start, and if he trips up, then Kakkonen, yeah, I'm not the man, guys, but thank you very much. When you have Kakkonen there, I mean, Kakkonen does have NHL experience. My 2 cents is they want a veteran guy to really be able to help a certain Jacob Fowler find stability. I think that's one of the things that hurt Jakub Dobeš the most when he started. And it's only when they brought in, I believe it was Keskikuro. I have to double check the name, but only once they brought in a veteran presence towards the second half of the season did Dobeš's numbers really take off. So I think they learned from that mistake. Same thing kind of happened to Primo. And at the end of the day, you want internal competition for these roles. So Dobeš, yes, seen as the backup, but Kakkonen is obviously going to be a guy that I think is going to see some NHL action if there's injury. Not that I don't believe that Jacob Fowler gets a game or two this season, though. So you have to be able to set your hierarchy. You have to be able to set expectations, and we'll go from there.
Well, the pressure, right? I guess, like, Sam Montembeault played 62 games for the Canadiens last season. That number needs to be obviously chopped down. And, the battle there is going to be whether Jakub Dobeš can be that guy to, take off a chunk of those 62 games Montembeault got in. Let's also talk about, for a second, I'll put this back up here, Florian Xhekaj playing tonight. Joe Veleno, Samuel Blais also in. These are three guys that I think, there's a chunk of the fan base that, notice them. I think, there is this movement here, and you see it in the chat. We talk about it regularly on our YouTube show about, sandpaper, grit, all of those cliches and whatnot, that there's an opportunity here. How big is tonight for Florian Xhekaj in your view, Marco?
Well, I mean, they're trying him at center, so that's already pretty telling on where they want him to go. But at the end of the day, a guy like Florian Xhekaj needs to show that he can play with the physicality necessary of him in that role, and I'm sure he's going to get some special teams usage as well, so that they can see what kind of extra. Yeah, I expected to. Some kind of extra oomph to his game, right? And I feel like when you look at what they need from him, they need him to be more than what people already expect of him. And I think that's a difficult thing to do when you've been like thrown around as like this unicorn kind of situation, right? You really need this guy to display that offensive spark on his own. And I think that's going to be a little tough to do playing with a guy with less experience than him, like Thorpe. Tuck didn't really impress at the rookie camp either. So I expect these guys to start their momentum by crashing and banging as much as possible, creating havoc, getting that momentum, and working off strong forechecks. So that's exactly what you want to see from him. And then if he can give you a couple of dangles like we saw last season in tight, then you really start seeing the push.
Habs and Flyers at 7:00 tonight. Like we're gonna see Fleury and Jack-Eye fight, right? Or Thorpe's gonna fight Florian's gonna fight Delorier tonight.
I mean, I don't like predicting fights. That's not my cup of tea.
It's the preseason. They do it all the time. It's like watching a midget AAA game. Like the puck is secondary. It's like you saw Davidson after the scrap yesterday. Davidson was like, let's go. The fans loved it, man. And his teammates loved it even more.
For sure. And I think Martin St. Louis was pretty adamant about it. He's like, I don't necessarily mind this in the playoffs, but it's definitely problematic if you do this during the season. I think, though, that there's a world where both Jack-Eyes fight tonight. That's probably going to get.
At least Arbor's proven himself. Like he doesn't have to. You know what I mean? He doesn't have to.
Yeah, but listen. I just don't want it to be like a Kachuk level, like predetermined. Like
I agree. I agree.
But, let the play the game, and if it happens, it happens, and whatever. But I'm. It's not so much the fighting that I'm looking forward to. It's the physicality. It's the grittiness.
Agreed.
Those bottom six players that we saw on the lineup are outside of Veleno are extremely gritty players. So that's, to me, going to be very fun to watch against a team like the Philadelphia Flyers, who are historically very gritty on the bottom six. So to me, that's really the value is going to come in. That's where the evaluation comes in. Now, I want to see Florian take that physicality and bring it up a notch and show that he can not only be physical, but also impactful in the offensive zone at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Hope we see a little bit more pace tonight. I mean, that game took a while for it to get going there. And I don't know if it was the Davidson-Poulin fight that turned it and brought energy back to the building or whatever. But I think as the games go on, I think obviously the pace will pick up. And I'm curious. I like the first line tonight. I'm going to be excited to see Slafkovsky tonight. I really am.
Mm-hmm. I mean, look, I think there's a lot riding on Slafkovsky's development. We spoke about this before. For the Canadiens to reach that to reach that contender status, he absolutely needs to become that 60, at least 70, at least 60 point, but ideally 70 point, power forward or a big skilled guy that they would need on that line to really differentiate themselves from other. And he's shown his capability of being able to do it. But again, it's that consistency. And, if he doesn't light it up tonight, that's okay. Really, for me with Slafkovsky is day one in Toronto. Yeah. That's when the evaluation starts for him.
Yeah. Habs and Flyers tonight at 7:00. It's back-to-back as the Montreal Canadiens go through their preseason games. And a reminder that we will be here again tomorrow at 11 a.m. for more instant reaction in the aftermath of the Canadiens' second preseason as the march towards October the 8th in Toronto is on and on in a big way. As always, please hit that like button as we move forward with more and more content as the season gets that much closer. What was it like for the fans, obviously, that don't have the opportunity? Paint a picture for the fans. What's it like being in that dressing room after a game?
A lot of the younger guys had just looked very, I'd say, satisfied with their performances. Like Philip Machar has been under a lot of pressure. He was all smiles. Obviously helps when you introduce yourself in Slovak. He's definitely going to smile like that. But when it comes to like Owen Beck was really happy with his game. Really felt like he vibed well with the puck, which is a problem that he pointed out, in game 1 of the rookie camp, is that he felt like he was chasing the puck a lot. The puck was finding him a lot. And I think that combination with Meshar really helped, because Meshar also kind of ramps up the more the puck is on his stick. So that kind of combo really works well together. And then Jacob Fowler, I mean, good Lord.
Yeah.
Getting his name, I think that was the first time I've ever seen 2 goalies have their names chanted in the same game, which says something to the performances of the goaltenders. But Jacob Fowler, I mean, he was just unapologetically in love with the Canadiens fans and the love they showed him and the energy they bring to the team and really, just pointing out that, a lot of people see it as like an anchor to play in front of 20,000 people, 21,000 people. He saw it as one of the biggest luxuries a goalie can have, because everyone is behind you and really kind of motivating you. And he's like, the trick is simply just to stay in your zone, but know that, all these people have your back. And so I think that was chill. That was chill for him. And then Brendan Gallagher and Josh Anderson were just having a time, just making jokes and, just all business. And we're here for the kids. And, we were very impressed and really just kind of putting over, excuse the wrestling term, but really putting over these younger guys and how impressed they were with their play, their dedication, their physicality.
Before we wrap it up, let's look ahead. Kirby Dach not scheduled to play tonight.
We need to.
What do you read into that, and when do you think he makes his return to the Canadiens lineup?
I'd probably say do you want him to play on the road? Because there's also the road versus home factor. There's the timing factor, right? Because they want to give him as much time to get comfortable with it. Yeah, he definitely does.
Agreed. I agree wholeheartedly with that.
They definitely want him to get to a point where you really want, how do I say this? You really want him to be comfortable with his knee, comfortable with his pacing. You don't want to kind of rush it. It's the same kind of surgery that obviously we know he tore his ACL. So similar kind of surgery that David Reinbacher had last year. We all remember how he was brought along. One game on, 1 game off, 1 game on, 1 game off. So it's not necessarily important when he plays. It's kind of going to be how he plays. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw him in one of the Toronto games, either Thursday or Saturday. But something tells me that it wouldn't be outlandish to see him play, for example, in Quebec City. And then you have that long break, and then again October 4th, so that you give him the most amount of time to heal. And then all the other teams in the NHL are going to flush most of their ECHL, AHL talent, and you're really going to be playing against other NHLers to really kind of measure him and test him. There's an argument to be made that he should be playing against lower competition to get himself going.
Yeah.
I personally don't necessarily, I'm not of that ilk, because, what happens if you have another Patrick Laine, David Reinbacher situation where you have a minor leaguer just take you out on a nothing play, right? So to me, I feel like NHLer on NHLer violence is lower during this time of year because they just want to make it to the opening start of the season. So you may see a little bit more nonchalance in that case, but obviously they're playing Ottawa, so then there's always room for fire there.
Well, that's it. I like this, what you just said, riffing up exactly. And, I remember, was it last year or the year before where the Canadiens and the Senators more or less had like this gentleman's agreement that they're not going to go crazy. And I think that's, it's a fair point. Like,
and then they fought.
Well, it's the preseason yesterday. You got a bunch of Penguins out there. I mean, this is going to be it's likely setting up to be a bottom 5 team in Pennsylvania with that squad. And you got guys trying to make big impressions. Look who the Canadiens iced yesterday. A bunch of guys who have positions and roles locked in. They're not going to be going balls to the wall compared to how, certain guys on the Penguins are, trying to make big impressions, trying to make an NHL team and make that NHL money. So it's Habs and Flyers tonight. Let's see how it unfolds. Again, more or less what the Canadiens lineup is going to be look like, a tandem of Dobish and Kakinen. David Reinbacher will make his preseason debut. Lane Hudson and Caden Gooley. Now we're cooking with gasoline as the top pair. The Jack Eye Bros, looking forward to watching that. Looking forward to watching Zachary Bolduc, and looking forward to Uri Slafkovsky and his line mates on the Habs top line, 7 o'clock tonight. There's a lot of good reasons to watch, like we talk about on this channel, the road to 20,000 subscribers. It's very appealing to me to be a part of the journey And the Canadiens are well on their way to becoming a contending team again. And the same thing, you're part of the journey here, watching these guys try to establish themselves or either reach another level based off what they had done a year ago. So thanks for being with us. Fun. The hour went by like it was just 10 minutes long. We'll be back here tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock as we get set to recap what we're going to watch tonight. Marco D'Amico, thank you as always. Go read the latest out of RG, including what's going on there in Winnipeg with Kyle Connor, big-time player, small market Canadian team, big-time goal scorer. Hard to keep those players. Be fascinating. Go see the latest there out of rg.org. Marco D'Amico, thank you so much for your time today, and we'll look forward to being back together tomorrow at 11 a.m.
Thank you. Have a good day, everybody.